Dr. Natanya, what would you recommend for all the clinicians out there who are ready to create legacy beyond the bedside?
Well, to be clear, I'm not a medical doctor and I am not one to prescribe advice to all, but I can say for myself, what has helped me unlock new worlds and new opportunities of, quite frankly, real healing that we can measure and see has been going beyond the formulaic and trusting a little bit of intuition and a little alchemy mixed in with the science, I would say. I think as clinicians in the health systems in the US get really stuck in the rigidity of what they have to do, quite frankly, which is understandable, we lose sight of the power of the placebo effect, for example, of thought, of bedside manner, of those kinds of things. And how when it's a collaboration effect, and now obviously when we're talking about gunshot wound and surgery, I'm not talking in those cases, but when there is a dialogue with the patient and clinician, where there's a shared goal, it seems like the possibilities, and this isn't just my, point of view, this has been researched, right? Outcomes are improved by those moments, even more so than interventions, meaning whether it be medications or surgical interventions alone. That kind of mindset and connection within the care partner, caregiver, if you will, patient and clinician, that's where the magic happens. And I think that's a lot of what I'm trying to shine a light on, even though, well, for a long time it was made fun of a lot.
You're listening to Clinical Investment Insider, where clinical leaders share how they moved from the bedside to the boardroom without abandoning their calling. Whether you're exploring your first healthcare investment, evaluating a board role, or ready to build capital that creates meaning, this episode is for you. Subscribe for weekly conversations with healthcare leaders building what lasts.
I'm your host, Sabrina Rombach, a clinician turned business strategist, TEDx speaker, and 3-time best-selling author. Today, our guest is Dr. Natanya Wachtel, is a behavioral scientist working at the intersection of psychology, technology, and human performance under pressure. Featured by Harvard Business Review, Forbes, and Netflix. She advises Fortune 500 companies on how humans actually think, decide, and change, translating complex research into languages that moves people. And she is the founder of the New Solutions Network and hosts the Natanya Experience. I'm so excited that you're here with me, and every time we come together, there's an endless of a conversation, and we pivot, we ground ourselves, and we come together. All right, so let's get started. You have been someone who worked with as an artist, experts, philosophers, clinicians, and there's a different way of how we think about healing. How do we build resilience? And especially you've gone through many things yourself. So we know everything has a lesson, and then everything has a reason that drove us to this area. So from your experience, what truly ground you from those recovery, resilience, rebuilding perspective?
Big question, Sabrina. First of all, thank you and to the HBA for having me here to talk with you today. And I hope what I say touches someone, or maybe it makes you angry or you disagree, and that's okay too, as long as you're respectful about it. All I can do is share my own personal perspectives and opinions and what I believe to be truths in this moment of this time. And I'm still learning every day, and that's a big part of it. Yes, I've had experiences that if I hadn't had them, I wouldn't believe it. Whether they be from accident and injury and healing and recovery in ways that were beyond what any clinical guideline had ever anticipated for me, but also understanding what traumatic brain injury means for your personality, identity, social groups, your values, your mores, your religious beliefs, everything. And how part of what we learn, anyone who is studying the human body and the human mind, especially in the Western science paradigms, will kind of understand functioning. The hip bone's connected to the thigh bone, but then there were all these other areas of discipline that I wasn't really connected to or encouraged to bring into my view of what is health. And those come from, other worlds, the arts, philosophy, a little bit of hip hop in my life, athleticism, physical movement. So then I look at things like Qigong and Tai Chi and yoga and breath work. And I was doing this in places like Ford Motors, and they were like, we don't have depression here. And, places where the language and the culture boxes were barriers. So people just did one way of being. And I think what I've been able to be free about, because I was desperate for my own healing journeys, was to look at all the tools in the toolbox and how to layer them together. And that's kind of what I advocate for and what our company tries to do today in a systems way.
It's definitely a combination of things. That we believe in multidimensional growth, and those type of growth that also means we have to be able to explore, to expand, to have that growth mindset to say what could be, right? Healthcare is definitely moving into more open to preventative medicine, right? We start seeing all those diagnostic coming out of not just, oh, you have could have skin cancer, but there's not enough dermatology to even scan us, right? And women's health, especially popping up in the past few years, a big movement from government support, as well as many of us trying to invest into women's health. Because why are we have the old school vernaculars, all the instrument do pap smear that hurts us, right? There's new things that really help us to stand out. So from
we have to check the calendar, right? Like, is this medieval times or did we actually advance? Like, what year is it?
your work is in that intersection of building innovation, AI, and also talk about ethical things, right? Over the hype. So what would you say, especially from both from the operator brain as well as the innovator brain? How do you be in the right space to say, we are not overhyping, right? We are drawing from true human experience and human application to understand you can't just slap AI on everything thinking it's AI. There has to be a true reason and compliance things to actually create and deliver a service.
Okay, so you said like 75 worlds in a preamble there with a question. I'm going to do my best because that's like me asking me how to, say in a lane in a 1-minute soundbite. So I'll do my best to answer, my dear, something about that. And I think what you're kind of referring to is sort of the human in the loop and the ethical, and maybe even like a little bit of a check yourself before you wreck yourself with AI, right? So what does that mean? It means that people are just throwing around buzzwords all the time. That's been the same thing. Before it was AI was the buzzword, it was internet, and it's the same thing. It's that there is a set of algorithms or logic or formula or code, however you want to call it, that is the infrastructure, that is the building blocks of those functions that whatever you want to do or create, whether it's an agent, a tool. So who is creating those steps? And most of the time, and I will say this, hopefully, again, not pissing too many people off, but I say this of my fellow brethren in the scientific community, especially I notice it in the high science field and in the medical field, where there is, quite frankly, you've proven yourself really, really, and worked really, really hard to have all this knowledge and discipline. And then you kind of give away the store without thinking about who's actually building that system. And what I mean is, usually it's like a 3-vendor bid thing on who can build me my app for my clinical trial recruitment thing that I have in my mind. I'm saying this as a hypothetical, or my whatever it is, diagnostic and femtech or whatever that is, rather than looking at, well, the people that are writing the code, the nuances inside the business rules, inside the, what does it mean for this person to be put into that category and what we're attributing about them and what decisions are being made at that micro level. Those are humans that are given information to then give to technology like artificial systems and LLMs to actually execute against. So blah, blah, blah. That's very boring to say. You've got to have somebody watching the store at every level. You have to have directives around what do you not want to have happen. If you're going to be collecting people's personal health data, if you're going to be making behavioral models for how to get from A to B, like making a decision about your treatments, you want to make sure that you are getting other inputs in that make sure you look at things like ethical guidelines and safeguards for those things. And so that it needs to be at all the levels. And a lot of times people just have their philosophic or their MVP for their business, and then they just want to get it done faster, cheaper, better, the quickest way. And they farm it out with really thinking about, we're talking about people's lives, which then are their livelihoods, their families, and all the people around them. And, a lot of other things. Who's looking at that data? Where does it go? What does it get reported to certain government systems? Are we talking about things that could be prejudiced against, whether they be communicable diseases or, I don't know, brain trauma where people don't trust what you say anymore because you don't know what you're saying anymore. Things like that. So I think it's one of those things where it's not just enough to say I'm doing AI. I think it's important to use some stewardship and to treat it like it literally is. You wouldn't get in the car that you drive not knowing that it was inspected.
That's such a great reference. You can't just keep driving, right? It doesn't matter if you have a new car, there's still a time that you needed to inspect the car, making sure we're actually on the right track for that matter. We always refer ourselves as a house board advisor is that we're more of your navigator, your GPS in that car. You probably spent a lot of time pitching investors, trying to get your co-founders, people just believing in you to build something, right? And then so that means you probably put an engine there. Great. You started somewhere. And as you start adding experts and help or vendors, you start putting that car together. But as you start driving, it's not good enough just to put gas and get going. If you don't have the right navigation system, you're going to be going with that one tank of gas, somewhat referred to money, right? You're going to run out of gas.
And more than that, I think it's the sense of direction at all, right? Like, where are you even going and why? Those kinds of things are shaped by those things. Like, and all those pieces are interconnected, right? And so that's why the team that you have, and quite frankly, and I say this, not all money is good money. And that's important too. And that's a little controversial, right? And it was really, really difficult. And I'm saying this with love and respect because I have big, big love for venture. Obviously, family offices and all of those, they have made and paved the way, and in the philanthropy space for endeavors that I feel very strongly about, and those of friends and family and people that I admire from all walks of life. So obviously, we're grateful for those folks who put up a resource, a capital, a system, an incubation company, to help amplify and rocket lift people. However, since your audience, at least from this, my understanding, is maybe folks who are in the seeking capital stage, I think the discernment around who you take money from is a topic that people don't talk about and should.
Yeah, and I think that's the same conversation that we as subject matter experts needed to also have the discernment for is we can't just get super excited about a company, let's jump in, let's help them, because if we don't really understand if that company truly have a sellable product, sustainable model, and scalable business, then you can pour your heart into this for months and years, and they're not really going anywhere. And then we're going to feel like, what do I do with all my time, right? Is this actually building the legacy that I wanted to be part of? Or I actually didn't get appreciated for whatever that you have contributed to those companies. So it is both sides, right? Like the founders need to really thinking about who do you want to have on your board taking on investments?
Why do they care about my company? What do they want with it? What is it going to do for them? And who do they affiliate with? Whatever you value, sustainability, ecological things, ethical practices with data hygiene. We talked about ethical practices with money and where it goes and where it's stored and who gets it and who does it. Other things around how you treat your employees and how you compensate them and their benefits. All those things trickle into your brand and your company's identity. And quite frankly, the different ways we even define success. And I think that a lot of times, because there's that hunger and need for validation in the startup phase, people are just so happy that someone says, yes, I'll help you. They don't think about maybe saying, no, this is a relationship and we're going to help each other. And capital is just one piece.
Correct. For us, capital is one of that 12 critical foundation that you have to have. Otherwise, you're building a castle on top of sand. So that's why even for HBA, we're very intentional about who's being in our ecosystem. How do we connect with the right operator, the right founder, the right investors, the right clinicians to join forces all together to create something amazing, and where we can be in the forefront of change and not waiting for the bigger cash, the bigger VCs, waiting for the hospital to decide what we should contributing to. So we also can create our own thought leadership and our own legacy. So that being said, we're so appreciative for you to join us. What do you feel like that makes HBA different from other ecosystems? And then who do you believe that would be the great people to continue to join us on this journey?
Sure, great question. I promise I'll do this in sound bites, right? So earlier I actually offered, I was like, I'd love to talk all about why I love the HBA because it's true. And it's easy to do. So I'll try and make it succinct to say I have not participated in all the elements fully yet. I am newer, but the few masterminds that I attended, for example, it was such an incredible window into so many worlds. And everybody was a very important piece of these kinds of ecosystems that Sabrina, you were just mentioning, right? So we have clinicians who are still in practice, clinicians who are trying to dabble with either creating products, services, or tools outside of maybe their traditional healthcare system or hospital system that they're working in. So meaning they're having their own endeavor, right? Then we also have folks who are funders, and those funders might come from outside of healthcare sector and are just sort of looking in because they're curious or they have a personal connection. Maybe they had a rare disease or someone in their family and they got really passionate about bringing those resources to the table. And or we had like the gentleman that you met in the airport as a chiropractor, and the fact that it happened in that organic way and he was just sort of new on that one day. I was just thinking about people at different life stages and all of us being sort of puzzle pieces that just click so well together because we identify this is sort of what I'm good at. This is what I'm passionate about. This is what I'm not good at, but I'm curious about. This is outside my comfort zone, but I'm ready to go. This is what I'm really not interested in. And this is what I'm really overwhelmed by. And then that other person might have those sort of opposite or complementary skills and services. And I feel like the HBA has that incredible, I've never seen before, diversity of thought, skills, talent, and yet a unified feeling of camaraderie. I've never been in a mastermind when a bunch of strangers that are quite established professionals can be so open and ready to connect so willingly. I would say there are one or two others that I've experienced, but they weren't necessarily strictly focused on sort of like a professional organization. And this is the first time I have seen this approach in this way, and it's really incredible.
Yeah, we so appreciate you. And from that perspective, it's all about like people in a room are truly open to share. And many times we heard from people, it's like, oh my God, let's run a mastermind longer, right? But we can only have so much time today. And that's why we intentionally match people, right? It's
Oh,
about,
and that too, and the matchmaking. I mean, as a Yenta myself, I can say I appreciate the matchmaking and the little timer that were like, "Oh no, it's gonna be over." It was true, and it was really all different kinds of folks, and you like leave with that, "Can't wait to talk to you again," and that's amazing. And it's almost and then I was speaking about that, but others were speaking about it as well. So I know I'm not alone in the thought, even though today this is just my POV.
now, we wanted to hear from you also because our ecosystem always about collaboration. So, what are you doing next, and how can we support you? I know you have your hands on many things, right? The investment side, the connector side, the institution operational side, right? Really teaching people on that. How do you make better, intuitive decisions, right? Saying the no to the right thing. What does that mean for you, and how can we support you?
Well, thank you. This part is awkward, but I am kind of excited because I have kind of some big stuff coming that I feel grateful for. For your audience who isn't aware, a couple months ago, I again had a fun story in the news where I fell off a giant commercial stage onto my head onto concrete over 7 feet, and talking about it to say like had a near death experience and a host of other challenges, along with more brain injury where I was impacted in my ability to speak and move clearly. I'm still not the same and in a lot of ways. And so it became it's like an allegory for me as a human, as well as in my like personal life and world, as well as my organization. So how do we rebuild from a setback? I wasn't sure what brain functions would come back and in what way, and whether you want to call it God, source, creator, universe, manifesting destiny, whatever your personal playbook is that it aligns to. So I'm going to be careful. I'm not going to name it. I'm just going to say I put out in a vulnerable time, I need help. I need someone to run this network because it's getting big and it's a network of companies and I don't know what I can do. But I also want to do the things, if I get this second chance or third chance for me, or like seventh chance, I want to be able to spend all the time I can with all the things that I feel like do the most good. And what I don't enjoy, I don't even do that well, is a lot of the shepherding around the structure of the business because I had to, but I didn't want to. And so whether you want to call it a miracle or God or the universe or source. I literally just was like, I really need someone or some people to help me do this. And it's been something I've been toying with for a while. And those people started showing up, and they had other really big jobs, and I couldn't believe it. And I didn't actually ask them, just to be clear. I asked within myself, like, what can I do now? How am I going to keep going? How am I going to run all this if I can't walk and move properly and speak properly? And then also I got the help, and I got my ability to function back. So I got both. But right now I'm excited to say that we are going to be announcing our new CEO. His name is Frank Saya. He's my old boss, and he just left his significant post at Novartis to join us and produced his book through our publishing arm, which is essentially we're giving a stage. And I say a stage, I don't mean a literal stage, although there's also a literal stage and both, where we give people a voice. And those people might be, like you said, they may be corporate C-suite leaders, they may be military people, they may be rappers, they may be athletes, they may be hoteliers. It's basically whoever wants to show up with this crazy group of people that we are and understand the human condition. And we are tracking it under behavioral science and coding and working with some of the best, because we have that history, right? How do we unlock human potential? And how do we unlock human potential in a way that is for everyone? So it is very important for me to also say, we are Harvard to Hood. We are not just working in these small spaces that follow only paradigms that come out of, let's just say, very rigid and culturally limited protocols. So we're looking at people who aren't formally educated, who think move through the world differently than other people, who love differently, who worship differently, who may or may not believe in some of the same things. But what is the common thing? So how do we find those common threads when we're all so different? And not just in lip service, but in a real way. You got to earn your way on the dance floor, right? And so it's really doing that and having people see me in interviews, and I'm like, that's not really the job, that's the fun part. I'm doing that for the story and to code the story to understand different cultures and how, especially, like, for example, you were talking about women's health. I mean, I didn't expect to be such a men's health advocate when I came out of the woman stuff, right? Women business and women this and women of the whatever award I get, right? And then I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not anti that. And by the way, shout out to Liz Powell, because that funding for femtech and all that is a lot because of her and the work that she does to get a lot of bipartisan funding back on the books for research and women's health. But saying that, I found that in mental health and in addiction, and especially in high stakes and high profile environments, because I had worked with military first responders and sort of high, tough guys, can I say it? That they were the ones who were the most locked and rigid. And they control a lot of people. And they employ a lot of people, and they have a lot of fans, and and then there's the whole idea of macho and man and what that is. And we're in 2026, for goodness sakes. And yet it's still a thing, and it's a thing that's actually keeping them locked. And it's keeping them with barriers and chasms between their loved ones and their romantic relationships and even their careers. And so having clinicians understand how to better relate to different kinds of people, even though everything is tech, I still love tech. I mean, tech is on board, but tech is the scaffolding. The rudder is the human. And that's just my opinion. And that's kind of what we're trying to do. And we're trying to break it down into courses. Like I said, the stage, right? So if you want to express your story, your truth, you're going from light to dark, whether that be addiction, workaholism, whatever, share it. Are you willing? And we do that. And so we do that in storytelling, and that's our sort of media department. And that might be podcasts, radio programs, which we have national syndicated radio. I don't know. I don't want to make it like a commercial. I just want to say we're using these vehicles to show, we're doing it with athletes. We're showing people really evolve who they are in their thinking, but not in a way that has judgment in it. And everyone's in their own time. And then, of course, we're using behavioral science to help individuals and teams on the corporate side and in the consumer space. We're calling it true you and super you. And we're still in progress, very early stages, working with other companies who have deep, deep histories of doing this work to combine our efforts, because I'm not the inventor of this. I'm just the aggregator. And I'm trying to get the best in class of everything. So whether that's unlocking sleep, sex, relationships, money, addiction, depression, all, I'm like, let's get it all. I'm not focusing on one zone. We're focusing on just a level up. And so what that most important part that we're trying to do is figure out what the first step is for different kinds of people. And one of those things that used to be the great equalizer was SSRIs, right? So if you have someone in mania or you have someone in major depressive disorder, you can bring them to this like baseline to do talk therapy or cognitive behavioral therapy or something like that. And we're trying to respect that model, but also go a little bit more broadly than that and think about people at every stage of where they are. How do we start that dance? What's the lead foot? And how do you adjust that to somebody who might have a complete distrust of someone of your ethnicity or someone with your background or Western science altogether? And how do you honor where they're coming from and put that into a solution that is right for them? And that's what we're trying to do across different ways and with organizations for their internal organization growth. And of course, all the basic scaffolding of, getting your business out the door. Because when you do all those things right, the revenue follows. So that helps.
And I think that's a critical portion of us who are subject matter experts need to build those thought leadership behind a stage, right? Having your voice to be heard, whether that's through a book publishing, a podcast stage, a in-person event, a conversation, a fireside chat, being on a panel. Those are where we connect and trust and believe in the impact and the legacy that you guys are creating. And it's so amazing that you've been able to tap into the celebrities and the organization and the individuals and using both your own personal experience as well as others to put all those meaningful work together. So that's Dr. Natanya. We're so excited for this conversation to be here, and links and resources are in the show note below. And we would love for you guys to continue to shout out to get people think about how do we collaborate, invite them to our masterminds, having these amazing conversations. So then we can all play in the real world, having these meaningful things and driving. It just makes things much faster, right? We talk about we are the navigation system because when we all come together, that's how we can go faster and not just giving a piece of the part that you still have to figure out how to put it into your car. So I'm your host, Sabrina Rombach. Keep building what it lasts because you meant to be here doing the work that you're doing. Until next time.
If our conversation resonated, share it with another clinician exploring what's next beyond practice. And if you want to explore what it looks like to invest with intention and advise with influence, visit healthboardadvisors.com to explore membership. We connect physician investors with vetted healthcare startups and match you with opportunities aligned to your expertise and goals, from seed to scale.